Hey everyone, my name's Rhiannon. Welcome back to Few Acre Farm. If you're new here, we are gardening in Zone 7B in Central Virginia. Today's video I have two little peeping toms behind me here. That's my horse Kobe and my donkey named Donkey. I'm going to zoom y'all in just so you can get a close-up of them. There they are. They're checking us out today. This is a little bit of a different setup. I'm usually in my greenhouse with all the supplies out here, but today it is high in the 70s. As you can see, I'm in a short sleeve shirt, so it feels like spring. And it is creeping into the 90s, I believe, in my greenhouse right now, even with the door open and the fan on. So I pulled all of my trays out of there. I have them just sitting outside in the sun. And I've got my table set up below. I'm gonna pan y'all down so you can see. So this is the tray right here of broccoli and cauliflower that I started 2 videos back, and I have one more tray with a few other starts on it. And then over here I've got my soil that I'm going to use to up pot the mini blocks into this 2-inch soil blocker right here. So I've already got my little mini block attachments that you'll need for this. And so these soil blocks will have this indent in them, and then the mini blocks for the broccoli will just sit directly into this big soil block. Alright, so I've taken y'all off the tripod just so you can see what I'm talking about here. So I've got all of my other little soil blocks laid out in the sun here just because it was too hot in the greenhouse. I've got the fan on and the doors open in there, so it's trying to ventilate all that hot air out. But so far, this stuff is looking pretty good. That is my other tray that has some broccoli starts on it right there, and I think it has some rudbeckia and maybe some snapdragons. These are my seed onions. This right here is a tray of stock and hollyhocks. That tray over there is larkspur and something else. And then I think this is my lisianthus tray right here. I'm still waiting for a lot of that to germinate, and I've got some other cold hardy flowers in the back there. So today I got these new bags. This is Fox Farm potting soil. So this is the ocean forest style that they have, and then they also have this Happy Frog. This is the same brand. This is Fox Farm. The Happy Frog is new to me. I've used the Ocean Forest potting mix before, and I've really liked it. It is a little bit heavier nutrients, so I think let me check the back of the bag. So this is a 30, 45, and 5% mixture in here, and then this one is just 30, 35. So the forest mix has a little bit more nutrients in it. I've used it before pretty successfully. They look kind of similar. I don't know how well you can see in the bag here. So they look pretty similar, I would say. This is actually a little bit wet because it was sitting outside at the hardware store that I purchased this from, but you can see it's got plenty of perlite. It's maybe a little bit more dense. It's hard to tell when you have wet soil, but I definitely know this is more sandy, and it does have vermiculite in it, so I think this, the forest mix has more vermiculite than the Happy Frog. The Happy Frog, a little bit lighter. You can see it still has some perlite in there. Maybe not as big of chunks in this one. There's a little bit more heavier material in the forest mix, and it's also got a little bit more phosphorus as well in that one. So I kind of just bought both of them, and I'm going to mix them together. That's what I've got in this bin right here. I've already put water in it, so it's pre-moistened, but I just mixed both of those together, and hopefully we'll come up with a happy medium. So for the seeds that I started the mini blocks in, I have used this Miracle Grow seed starting potting mix. So on the back of the bag here, this says it has 0.03% nitrogen, phosphate, and potassium in it. So the fertilizer level in this potting mix is actually really, really low. And so for a lot of the seed starting mixes that I buy, this is just what I was able to source. If there was an organic option, I probably would have picked it. But for how little fertilizer is actually in this bag of soil right here, I'm not super concerned about... Someone's honking at me. I'm not really concerned about the amount of fertilizer that those tiny little seedlings are taking up, because the time that I put them into the ground and they're actually producing fruit, all of that fertilizer is going to be gone from the soil at that point. The Fox Farm soil mix that I got, though, those are both organic. I think they use mostly earthworm castings, bat guano, which I'm pretty sure is just bat poop, limestone, and then a couple other good things that I can't remember. The hardware store close to my house that I source most of my gardening supplies from did not have like an organic seed starting mix, so I just went with the Miracle Grow. So I'm gonna go ahead and start making these big 2-inch soil blocks, and then I'll pan y'all down just so that you can see what I'm doing, and I'll probably put you on a speed round. And so all that I'm doing to make these 2-inch soil blocks, like I said, I have the little mini blocker attachment on the inside of my 2x2-inch soil blocks. I got this from Johnny's. If you want more details, I think my very first video or second video, I think, I did a tutorial on how to soil block, all the supplies that you need, but I'll put a link in the description below. And all I'm doing is I'm probably going in here about 4 or 5 times maybe, and really just packing the soil into these soil blocks so that they'll hold their shape. And then I'm just taking my spade, wiping off all of the excess. And then this is considered the front of the soil blocker because it's got this little lip here so that you can actually put your fingers on something. The back doesn't have anything that you can hold on to. So I hold it like this, and then to release the soil, you push down on the handle right here. So I'm gonna put it where I want it, grab hold, and just push down. And then there's one little row of 2x2-inch soil blocks. I'm gonna speed y'all up again. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I have 40 2-inch by 2-inch soil blocks on this 10 by 20 tray right here. They fit pretty well. I don't think I could pack any more in. I'm gonna get y'all a little close up again. So I've got the 4 rows on either side here, and then I have 2 in the middle. This is the best way that I found that they fit. When I first did the 2" by 2" soil blocks, I transplanted my mini blocks up a little bit too soon, and they didn't have enough roots to really sustain the transplant process. However, during that time, they were also growing a lot of mold too, just because these soil blocks are pretty close together. However, I found that when I wait until the transplants are a little bit bigger, so around this stage, they do a lot better. They take up more moisture, and I don't have to worry about as much mold growing on my tray, and the plants are therefore not stunted. So I'm just going to start picking up these starts here. And here's an example of one, so you can see the roots that are coming out of this little plant right here. Pretty cool. And I'm just going to plop them right down into the soil block here. The good thing about these mini blocks is that if you get one like this that has kind of started to germinate a little bit, but it was pretty slow coming along, or if you just don't have germination in one of the blocks, it doesn't really matter because it takes up so little space. If you have one like this that kind of was growing on the edge of the soil block and it doesn't have enough soil to sustain it, you can just grab some soil, you know, from in here, put it down in the soil block, and then just pack this loose soil around it. It doesn't have to be in the mini block in order to do what it needs to do to survive. They're pretty hardy. Some plants don't like their roots to be disturbed, especially things like squash or melons, or some of the native plants that grow around Virginia. I've noticed when I've bought seeds, it says that they really don't like their roots to be disturbed. But for the most part, I feel like most vegetables are usually pretty forgiving if you kind of mess with their roots a little bit. So I'm not being super gentle here. I'm just kind of tucking them in. Also, if they're falling over a little bit, you can just take some extra soil and give them just a little bit more support. Alright, so tray full of broccoli transplants. They are looking pretty good, actually. I was just kind of going through the ones that were leaning over and just adding a little bit more soil to support them a little bit, and you can just throw the extra back into your big bin that you're starting. So this was the Yod Fa broccoli that I started a couple videos ago. So this is kind of the more, it's a non-heading variety. It kind of is similar to asparagus in which you eat the stalks of it versus like the head. So I'm just going to grab another tray and keep on trucking along here. Alright guys, so I've taken you off the tripod here. We have 6 trays of broccoli and cauliflower potted up into 2-inch by 2-inch soil blocks. They usually look a little floppy, not just broccoli, but anything after you transplant them. So like some of these kind of look a little sad and they're kind of, you know, hanging their little heads down. But they'll perk back up after a day or two, and then just water them. Just make sure they have plenty of water when you transplant them from the mini blocks into the big blocks, just so that their roots don't die when they're trying to reach down into that new soil. I'm going to put y'all back on the tripod. Alright guys, I put you back on the tripod. I had to move the camera a little bit and put my sunglasses on because the sun has moved to a different location. I did want to show you some of the other seed starting supplies that I use. I'm not planning on soil blocking all of the starts that I have, or all the seeds that I'm going to start. Some things I think just don't do well in soil blocks. And also soil blocking can be a little bit of extra work. So when you think about it, when you're up potting things specifically, you're taking a bunch of soil, you're having to kind of like shift this around in the soil a few times, you know, wipe off the excess soil, and then you're having to put it in the tray, and then you put, you know, your transplant into the bigger soil block. Whereas with a 2-inch pot, for example, let me, if I can grab this, here we go. So a 2-inch pot, or any type of pot really, you just have your bag of soil. You scoop from your bag of soil, or you could potentially, you know, put soil into a big container like how I used to soil block, and then pre-moisten it, and then you don't even have to water these afterwards. And you just scoop up your soil, make a little hole, put your transplant in. So this is a little, I feel like it's a little less work than up potting in the soil blocks. However, soil blocking is really beneficial for root growth, especially I use it for things that I am going to plant directly out into my garden. So the broccoli that I just up potted, all of those are going straight out into my garden after they mature in that 2-inch soil block. So I'm not planning on up potting them into any other, either a bigger soil block or another container from the 2-inch soil blocks I just put them in. So these pots right here, I'm going to pan y'all down just so you can see what I'm talking about. These were a collection that Jill Rakin from Whispering Willow Farm did. I want to say it was last year. So these are all the colors that came in the collection. It was a collaboration with her and Bootstrap Farmer. And this is the insert tray that you can also get through Bootstrap Farmer. And you don't have to have like these exact pots or any of her pots for that collection. They sell like plain black pots, or if you just don't want them in color. And they fit perfectly into this 32 cell insert tray. And the great thing about this is that if you can see, the holes at the bottom of these 2 cells line up with the holes in the tray here, and so when the roots grow down through those holes, you can bottom water. So I've got a 10 by 20 tray here. I fit this holder, the 32 cell holder, directly in there, and then my pots don't move when I'm transporting my seedlings around. So that's super helpful, especially when you're hardening off your plants in the summertime, like late spring, early summer, you know, when you're having to take seedlings in and out, you know, it's helpful to have something that's not going to jostle your seedlings around too much. Another pot that I like to use, actually 2 other pots that I like to use. This one is a 3.5 by 5-inch pot, I believe. And I'll find the link for all this stuff and put it down in the description below. But this I got from Greenhouse Megastore, along with this pot right here, which is either a 3-inch or maybe 3.5. It's a 3 or 3.5 inch by the same length, 3 or 3.5 inch. So it's it's as wide as it is tall. And so the bigger ones, the 3.5 by 5 inch pots, I like to use these for my tomato starts because there's more room for the roots to grow in. And they're not going to be able to stay in those 2" by 2" soil blocks. There is another option. You can get a bigger soil blocker that's like, you know, probably the same size as this, but I just feel like it's probably going to be so much work to like make the soil blocks and then also just try to keep up with the moisture levels. I would much rather just be able to put my tomatoes in this type of pot and then bottom water them through the holes in the bottom. And then I think 18 of these fit perfectly. I don't have 18 to show you, but I believe 18 of these 3.5 by 5" pots fit perfectly into a container like this, and they're not moving around too much when you're transporting the trays. These pots right here, the smaller ones, I like to use for my peppers and eggplants. They really don't get as big as like the tomatoes that go into the deeper pots. Their root systems don't get as developed. They kind of take off a little bit later into the summer, and so these are a great option for if you want to bottom water your starts to put like peppers and eggplants in. These pots I got from Greenhouse Megastore as well, and I will find a link and put it down in the description. I also have some of these 6-pack cell trays from Bootstrap Farmer. These also fit well in a 10 by 20 flat. These are perfect for like herbs or like my Lysiantha seeds if they get big enough to pot up before I put them in the ground. I started them a little late, so I'm skeptical of whether or not I'll need to up pot them, but if I do, I'll probably put them into a 6-cell pack like this, just so that I can also bottom water them as well. I'm gonna pan y'all up so you can see me. Alright guys, I've moved you back up again. That concludes today's video. I wanted to talk to you about how I've been up-potting my mini blocks into my 2" soil blocks, and also talk a little bit about other transplanting and seed starting options that I have used in the past and that I plan to use this year as well. And then also some of the growing mediums and potting mixes that I use to grow beautiful plants. I'm gonna pan y'all down just so that you can see my dog Bo. He's been wanting to get in the video today. So that's him. Bobo. Hello. Thank you guys so much for watching though. If you have any questions or if you have any suggestions for other ideas that you've thought about while you've been watching this video, please let me know. I'm always open to trying new things and I love hearing from y'all. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. It really helps out my channel. Thank you so much for watching again, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.